Hey, want to join my federation?
Depends. Will your friend
The pacifist.
be there? Ah, friend!
Pacifist.
Friend! Oh, best friends forever and ever! Oh, friend!
Welcome to my advanced guide for Stellaris 3.0. The main focus of this episode is operations and federations. For a full list of chapters, check out the description below. Welcome back to the Othethi Interplanetary Assembly. The year is 2243 and we have a reasonably sized empire going on here. We've made contact with a lot of neighbours across the galaxy. We've formed the galactic community. We've got some close friends to our west who are very cooperative and friendly with us. And to our east, we currently don't have any large threats. Not really. Our navy is more than up to the task of taking on any neighbours or rivals. Except possibly these guys. Maybe we need to do a bit of spying here. But anyway, let's get going. Whilst it is important to make sure that you unemploy your enforcers so that they can use the pot for a different role, you never really want to get your crime at 30 or above. Now, why is our crime at 30? There's a couple of reasons for that. The main reason, actually, is that this governor here is corrupt. So we can get a new governor now. Which governor I'm going to choose? Well, I've actually got this retired fleet officer governor here. Now, this one is a fantastic governor. You want to have one of these to go on your core sector or whichever sector you're going to be building most of your ships from. This is going to reduce your ship build cost. If you stack this with the right agenda for your prime minister, you can, or your leader of your civilization, you can use these bonuses in concert to massively reduce the cost and increase the speed at which you can build ships. So actually I'm going to take this one, and whilst I would like an intellectual governor, oh good, I've got one. I'm going to put the intellectual governor in. It is unfortunately an alien, but I don't think I'm a xenophobe in this playthrough. No, I'm xenophile, so that's actually apparently good. So we're going to swap this guy over here. And now what this is going to do is going to instantly reduce my crime down. So I'm no longer above 30, because you want to look out. If you're above 30 crime, that is a problem, and you need to be doing something about that. Otherwise, good governors to get hold of. The environmental engineer is a really good governor for your core planet. It's also quite good to have on a relic world because you're going to be reducing that clear blocker time. Especially if you have a relic world start, environmental engineer is essential to have in your core sector for clearing those blockers that will give you relics, which you can then use those to turn into energy to clear more blockers. It's a great little system. The architectural interest, that's an okay one. It's good to have one of those if you want to swap it in to be building more buildings. Administrative capacity from bureaucrats plus 10%. This one's pretty crap. I would never recommend going for that one. What you really do like to get hold of is, for instance, some guy here. This governor has intellectual and architectural interests. So they're governing my core sector here. And they're actually giving me a bonus to both building something. As you can see, it's going to cost me less to build one of these districts or buildings, and a bonus to my research output and production, which is fantastic. It's important to note as well that as you skill up your governors, they provide increasing bonuses to resources from jobs. So for every skill level, an extra 2% resources from jobs, -3 crime, and -2% empire sprawl from pops. So the higher up you can get these governors, well, basically the better, because you're going to be getting more resources from your planets, etc. Now, of course, you are going to be faced with a bit of an issue. When a governor dies, you're going to be faced with swapping out another governor into this role who'll have a probably lower skill level, so you'll be reducing your resource output and also having a bit more crime. So that's another reason why it's important to have governors out on your external worlds, external sectors, just so that you can be training them up. So for instance, when this governor in the center dies, I'll probably swap him out with this Montu governor. I'll swap this Montu governor out into my core sector because he is a level 4. Yes, the agrarian upbringing's kind of rubbish. And actually looking at it now, maybe I prefer to keep that there, and hopefully this governor, this claws of magenta, will get to a high enough level before some guy dies. I mean, some guy is 76, So we just go over and check out how long he's got left to live. At least 4 years before he starts possibly dying. Okay, interesting. And now we have another issue here, and that is that our consumer goods, well, we're running a deficit, and that is after buying in 33 a month. Is there anything we can do about that? Well, we could build some consumer goods factories, or we could build some industrial districts to increase production, and that's possibly part of the solution. But another thing we can do at this point is we can swap over our trade income to be producing consumer goods. So if I go to my policies, I can now set my trade policy here to be consumer benefits. I am going to be losing 20 unity per month, but at this point I've already got I've got 2 traditions complete. I'm already getting almost 100 unity. Most of my unity is now coming from jobs. I think that's an acceptable change, and then I can reduce the amount of consumer goods I'm buying, which will help rebalance my economy a little bit. Something else you can do relatively quickly is you can swap governors in and out. So I actually want to clear a tile blocker, so I'm going to take the environmental engineer and I'm going to swap them into that sector briefly, because that's going to reduce my cost of clearing tile blockers. It'll reduce the cost here by 125. So if I clear 2 of these, this governor at the cost 200 is already paid for himself, and then I can swap back to my other governor and continue with the month. That way I won't lose any production, but it has been cheaper to clear these tile blockers. And if I wanted to clear more, well, I'd swap that governor back in to whichever sector I wanted to be clearing tile blockers in. It's important to note that we only calculate your income at the end of the month, and this means that you can swap a governor in or change something around in terms of changing your administrative office's usage to increase your administrative capacity, and then swap back a proper governor or remove those jobs in the middle of the month, so that at the end of the month when you get your income, it's completely unaffected by the fact that you were actually using a bureaucrat. So here we have our neighbours, the Rakudon that went to war with us earlier, and we do have a spy network in there with a high infiltration level. Well, what can we do with that? Well, the first thing we can do, we can do a series of actions. The first one we got really here is gather information. That's going to increase our intel level and our maximum infiltration level on the Rakudon stellar hegemony. This is going to mean we can know more and know more for longer as well. That will only increase it a bit though. It's not a fantastic action, but if you've got nothing else to do, it's all right. On the other hand, we have acquire asset. Now that is going to give us an asset. An asset will increase our infiltration level by 5, which is great. So we can then end up getting more intel. But it'll also mean with future operations, we can reduce their difficulty. So if we're wanting to improve our network, acquire assets a much better plan than the gather information. In my opinion, over time, it's going to be more stable. Extort favors, well, that's pretty good if you are at some late point in the game and you're in the galactic community and there's a small number of votes in something. For instance, let's say you're trying to stop the Galactic Empire from forming and you want to vote against it. Well, you can extort favors from a civilization with lots and lots of diplomatic weight who's voting opposite to the way you're voting. You'll only get between 1 and 3 favors doing this, so it can be very, very cost intensive if it's something you want to do. Smear campaign is a bit like Spark Diplomatic Incident in that they're only useful against the AI. So smear campaign, however, you can choose who to target with this one. The one thing you want to make sure you don't click is commence when ready with smear campaign, otherwise you won't get the choice of who to target. Steal technology is the best operation to do. If you do it with an asset, you're going to be getting a 10% boost to your research afterwards if you destroy that asset. But most of the time you get the option to do that. And on top of that, you'll get a 30% production bonus towards a specific technology that you'll also get the option of researching. So in this case, I'm going to be doing the steal technology action because that's a good one. Sabotage starbase, not so great. You're going to knock out a single module, but not even knock it out, just damage it. Armed privateers, you get a tiny fleet that forms, and it's pretty easy for anybody to deal with that relatively quickly. The other ones I haven't mentioned, prepare sleeper cell. Now that one is really quite good if you are wanting to move your envoys around. So you can use this, and it will mean you'll have no decay of your infiltration level for, I think, 10 years. It may be 20, some long period of time afterwards. So that's a good one to go with. Spark Diplomatic Incident, as I mentioned, similar to Smear Campaign, pretty useless unless you're going against the AI. Smear Campaign itself, if you're trying to break up a federation, can be very cost intensive. You have to have a high rate of infiltration level gain in order to be able to run this repeatedly, and you need to be running it every 1 to 2 years, otherwise you'll never even break the federation apart, and it's going to cost you a lot, and I really do mean a lot of energy to pull this one off with Smear Campaign. So I've had the Lost to Bureaucracy event pop up. It sounds like a bad one, but actually some of the options here are really good. So the bottom one is kind of crap. You get 80 influence, but so what? This one, you're going to convert 500 energy and 100 influence into 1000 unity. That's okay, but for us that's 10 months. On the other hand, we could get Sprawling Slums. Now on the surface that sounds rubbish, but let's just take a look at that quickly. What does a Sprawling Slum do? Well, that gives us a single extra pop. So we've just gained the option of building a pop for 300 energy. That's really good. So I'm actually just here going to swap in the governor that will make it cost even less. That's only 225. And yeah, I'll also queue up the Industrial Wasteland. Why? Well, actually no, I won't. There's no need for that now. And I'll swap back out to my other. And that means I'm going to be getting an additional pop on this planet for only 300 energy, or 225 in this case. And here we have the Senate floor voting. Now, something you can do, which is a bit of a weird one, and I'll just demonstrate it quickly, is that you can do a bit of kind of horse trading, so to speak. So sometimes this can be a bit unpleasant to do in a multiplayer situation, but let's say our opponents were winning this one and I didn't want that to happen. Well, what I could do is I could go to those three here, these three civilizations, and I can give them 10 favors. Well, what's this going to do? Well, these alien empires, these AI empires, I've given them a bunch of favors which are worth a bunch of diplomatic weight. But then I've moved to the opposite side, so they're now losing. What does that mean? Well, this means that those alien empires are going to cash in my favors, and suddenly, yep, they've cashed in almost all of my favors, and now we're winning by 5,000. Yes, we were winning before, but we weren't winning by such a large margin. Here we are. Unfortunately, they have kept hold of a few of my favors. That's because I just gave them all of them. I should have really focused on only giving a couple. But through this kind of horse trading, you can dramatically increase your vote tally. And actually, if it's multiple empires, you can do it multiple times between them to give them 10 favors to then be able to call in your favors quite quickly. You can also, for instance, you can move to abstention as well, and that means you won't be counting on the side of the opponent here. And then you suddenly got all of these AI empires which are cashing in your more diplomatic weight than you have, and you're comfortably abstaining. So that's a really interesting way of boosting your diplomatic weight, so to speak. It can be frowned upon and banned in certain multiplayer situations, and it's not the most pleasant. You can end up having kind of ratchet races where you're ratcheting up to have higher and higher levels of that kind of swapping. Now, the Fleet Academy building is a very important building to attach to your shipyards. Why is that? Well, it's going to give you 100 extra starting experience on your ships. But what does that do? Well, your ships are all different levels of experience. When they start off, they're irregular and they get no bonus. As soon as they get to 100 experience, they become experienced. And an experienced ship will do an extra 10% weapons damage. When you get to the level above experience, you get even higher bonuses, and I think off the top of my head there may be a level above that, but it's so difficult to get there that I'm not going to talk about it. The important one here is experience. So if you build that building, if you build the Fleet Academy here, what you're going to be getting is an extra 10% damage bonus to all ships built here, which is good. You want to be stacking as many bonuses as you can, so it's really important to make sure you keep hold of those kinds of bonuses wherever you can find them. And we've just uncovered our first relic, the Blade of the Huntress from fossilized remains that turned up here on this planet Lycia. We went down the chain the whole way. We got plenty of artifacts from it, and then at the end we got even more and this relic. So if we go to our Unity tab, I change from traditions to relic. I can see here the Blade of the Huntress. Now what does it do? So I can choose to activate my relics for a cost of influence, and then for a certain amount of time, in this case 120 months, which is 3,600 days I believe, we are going to be getting plus 25% sublight speed on all our ships. In addition to that, relics always give a passive bonus as well. In this case, that's going to be 25% army morale and plus 2 to our planet sensor range. So that should mean we've got an even higher range on our sensors. Yep, we can now see slightly further into space over there. Brilliant. This specific relic is not going to be useful unless I'm in a war situation, and even then you can only activate one relic at a time, and when you do there'll be a cooldown on activating any relic. It's possible I'd want to use the Blade of the Huntress, but if I have any better things I might want to use those instead. Now I've completed that project, and I've Rakuten Researched is secured. Unfortunately it's only off-world trade companies, not a great technology, but there are some things I can do, because if I were to click now, I'd get a certain amount to that technology and it wouldn't be the best. But what can I do? Well, I can go through my empire and disable, and you heard me right there, disable every single, and I do mean every single administrative office. What's that going to do? Well, that's going to massively increase my empire, massively reduce my administrative capacity. Look at that. Tradition technology cost plus 122%. So if I click this now, fantastic, I'll complete that, and we'll go to our technology and we'll look at swapping over, and now we can see that it's 1,600 of 5,454. Oh no, that's really quite high. Sorry, I said 122, I meant 81% technology cost. That was tradition adoption cost. But that's really quite high. Well, we should do something about that. Maybe we should employ all of our bureaucrats and tell them to go back to work immediately, because we really don't want to be running at this high level of empire sprawl for very long. Brilliant. So we've re-employed all of our bureaucrats, and now we're only at plus 15%. Well, if we go back to technology, now it's only going to take us 12 months to complete it. Well, would you look at that? 30% of 3,488 is apparently 1,636. Well, we've gained a big extra block there by using Empire Sprawl kind of as a bonus, which is really quite cool to note. Now our neighbours over here, they're no longer at war with anyone. They've got overwhelming fleet power. They're also the second most powerful empire in the galactic community. I think it's time that we formed a federation. Now, which federation should I choose? There are a couple of different ones to look between. So starting at the top here, we have the Galactic Union. That's going to give us a slightly higher intel level between members. And as we progress down that tree, what we're going to see here is that at different levels, we're going to be getting some bonuses. Now, those bonuses are overall okay. You're going to be getting some extra diplomatic weight as the president, some more unity, some extra envoy, and regular members will be getting, including the president here, extra damage to the crisis up to that maximum cap of plus 50%, more unity, less cohesion loss, but generally it's a bit of a meh federation type. On the other hand, we do have a Martial Alliance available to us. Well, that one at its base level is going to start out with some sort of Federation fleet, which is really good. We're not going to have to level up the Federation to get access to a Federation fleet. Whereas with Galactic Union, Research Cooperative and Trade League, you're going to need to get to level 2 before you can change the Federation law to be able to have fleets. We are going to go with a Martial Alliance because that's pretty much the better of the two options available to us. It's going to give us more bonuses to our ship's fighting abilities over a Galactic Union. And Galactic Union, yeah, it's fine, but as I said, it comes with mainly cohesion-based things, and it's more of a role play or vanilla option. Now, other options we don't have available. Trade League, we'd need to be a Megacorp or Merchant Guild to get hold of Trade League. But what can you get from a Trade League? Well, the main things you're going to get from a Trade League are the Special Trade Policy, which is going to enable you to get half an energy credit, 0.25 consumer goods and 0.25 unity for every trade value. As well as that, as you upgrade the level of your Federation, you're going to be getting bonuses to trade value. With at the max level as President, you'll get a 30% bonus to trade value, which is pretty good. Though, saying that, you'll only get a 25% damage to crisis for this one. Otherwise, we have the Research Cooperative. So this Research Cooperative, in order to get that, you need to be Materialist, Fanatic Materialist, or Machine Intelligence. But what does a Research Cooperative enable us to do? Well, a Research Cooperative is going to give us extra speed from research agreements, as well as a free research agreement between all members, which is going to boost our technology. That's going to help because you're also going to get, on the one hand, a science bonus from technology, and on the other hand, you're also going to be getting a science rate bonus if another member has already researched that technology before you. You won't be getting any damage extra against crisis ships, though during a crisis you will be getting a 40% research speed bonus. And at the top level, an extra megastructure build capacity. This one is alright, though again, it's got some drawbacks. You're not getting some of the bonuses you're getting from others. And then we come to the third, final, and somewhat best, I would say, Federation, and that is the Hegemony. So a Hegemony, what does that give you? Well, any members of a Hegemony cannot leave the Federation. Members can gain the Secede Casus Belli as well. If you want to leave, you have to go to war to do it. And on top of that, there are reduced centralization requirements. But as it goes on, you get to level 3 and you can establish Hegemony War Goal, or Hegemony War Goal, with neighbors, so you can bring them into your Federation militarily. You don't have to make them tributaries. You can also start a Federation with one member, make a tributary out of someone else, and then kick out that first member from that Hegemony, so you've only got tributaries in your Federation, which is a pretty cool way to do it. You'll be getting nice bonuses to your resources for your members, and you'll be getting yourself nice bonuses in terms of diplomatic weight and envoys. But the main thing here is that you're going to be creating kind of a mini empire, a loosely established empire. You do need to be authoritarian, fanatic authoritarian, or rogue servitor in order to form one of those this Federation type. So for now, we are going to go with the Martial Alliance. Brilliant. So we have now formed the Federation. I am the President. Let's take a look at some of the laws we have in this Federation. Okie dokie. So at the moment, the succession type even is rotational. We want to change that to possibly challenge, or later on strongest. To do that, we're going to have to increase the Federation's centralization. Kind of the first thing I will have to do, though, is I will have to throw in a couple of envoys into this Federation because I am going to need to make sure that we are gaining cohesion. You need to make sure you're gaining cohesion. If you're not gaining cohesion, then you're going to have a problem. You need to be at 100 to be gaining experience, or you need to be above 0 to gain experience, and you need to be at 100 really to be passing lots of these laws without having a big issue. So For instance, the first thing I'm going to be doing once I get to this point is changing the term limit to 40 years. At the moment it's 20 years. If I change it to 40, that should give us enough time to get to level 2, change the type to challenge, and then make sure the challenge type is one which we can win easily and maintain our dominance in this federation. Otherwise, which other laws will I be changing? Well, I'm also going to be changing the fleet contribution. I'm going to be moving that up, and I will look at the Federation ship designer later because that's quite important too. I will be making sure that everyone constructs the fleet because I want my alien neighbours to be basically spending alloys to give me ships. As long as I stay as the president, they are in essence my ships. Can subjects join? Later on I'm going to be changing that to no, because I don't want to have a bloated federation with lots and lots of members, especially at the beginning, until we get to a point where I can change the vote weight to diplomatic and make sure that my diplomatic weight eclipses that of the other members of my federation. At the moment I'm at 1.5k diplo weight and they're at 1k, so I do need to increase my diplomatic weight in order to be assuring that I will have supremacy there. But otherwise I'm going to change to majority vote, and then later on president decides with invite members and, well, actually sorry, with war declaration we're going to keep it at unanimous for now, because that's going to mean that no one can declare war or invite members unless I say yes, and I don't want any other members in this federation until we get to a point where I am completely comfortable that I have changed the laws around so that I can maintain my dominance over this political body. Of course, you could play it differently. You could have a role-play federation, but generally you don't want the AI in charge of your federation. If you're a player-based federation, having rotation is kind of alright because you can talk to the player, but with an AI, when they're in charge, you're left in a sticky situation, or you can be, where the AI does some stupid things. Kick members, again, we want majority vote, but I will change the president decides later. Free migration, this one you're going to be doing whatever you want with. And separate treaties, I will be prohibiting them later on, as I don't want the members of my federation getting too cozy with other neighbours. But overall, that's the general direction I'm going to be going in, specifically this challenge type. I'll be changing it to challenge and then changing it to the liquidity challenge. So that means that if you have enough energy credits, and luckily I've got a whole bunch of them, you can bid to become the president. So every 40 years there'll be a bit of a bidding war, and you should always be able to outbid the AI unless you run out of cash. The AI will only ever bid 2,500, maybe 5,000 at a push, so 1 to 2 rounds. And that's where I'm going to leave it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, please leave a like. If you have any feedback for me, please leave a comment. And if you'd like to see more content like this, please subscribe.